côté, 1. En arrière, 2, 3. Cha, cha. 1. En avant, 2, 3. Cha, cha. 1. En arrière, 2, 3. Cha, cha. 1.
So in writing about culture in his 1938 An Outline of Vietnamese Culture, Đào Duy Anh was influenced to some extent by the writings of Chinese scholars at that time, such as Yang Dongchun, this guy who wrote a book a few years before Đào Duy Anh did on an outline of Chinese culture. At the same time, though, if you read this book that Đào Duy Anh produced in 1938, there's also clear evidence of the influence of French ideas. And right after the passage where he essentially says the same things as Yang Dongchun at the beginning of his book, Đào Duy Anh goes on to say something different, but something that was very French. What he said was that he asked, why are there different cultures around the world? And he says it's because of the geography of different places is different. And what he argues is that different geographical contexts lead people to establish different economic means to survive, and this is one thing that creates differences. He then goes on to say, however, that human beings have the ability to transform their environments and to transform the way that they live. And therefore, while the geographical setting can influence their lifestyles to some extent, they also have the means to completely transform their lifestyles and to transform the environment. That explanation of what Đào Duy Anh is calling culture, as he's saying culture is this history of the efforts of human beings to adapt to and to transform their environment and all of the means that they develop to do so. This is actually the ideas of a French geographer by the name of Paul Vidal de la Blache, who was essentially the father of modern French geography. Vidalian geography, as it's called, is based on three key concepts: milieu, or environment, genre de vie, or lifestyle, and circulation, or circulations or contact between societies. And what Vidal argued was exactly what Đào Duy Anh said in the beginning of his book, which is that the milieu, or the environment, can have an influence on the genre de vie, or the lifestyles of human beings. However, the technology and the ideas that they learn about and adopt through circulations or through contact with other societies can likewise transform the genre de vie and transform it to the extent that the environment becomes essentially not important anymore. To take a contemporary example of that, Dubai is a city-state in the desert, and yet you can go skiing and ice skating in Dubai, as the technology and knowledge that they've obtained through circulations or connections have allowed them to transform their genre de vie or lifestyle to the extent that the milieu or environment has really no relevance to them anymore. This is a really key concept, and it's one that I see continues through Vietnamese writings right up to, say, the writings in the 90s of people like Dân Nặc Them. But Vidalian geography is also a kind of slippery and dangerous concept, because on the one hand, it's saying that the environment is important for establishing a certain lifestyle, but then at the other hand, it also says that people can change things so that the environment isn't really important. Why is this dangerous? Because if you overemphasize the influence of the environment, you can get into a kind of nationalistic praise for the uniqueness of a society. And ultimately, what people found with the ideas of Vidalian geography is that that is an inaccurate direction to go, because the societies where the environment has a very powerful influence on are generally very isolated agricultural societies, where any society that has some contact with the outside world through circulations is going to transform itself to the extent that the environment is no longer such a determining factor and does not make that society unique because of its geographical location. Đào Duy Anh didn't head down that nationalist path. He basically followed a lot of the things that French writers were saying at that time, which was that the environment of, say, the delta in the north and the mountains was different, and that led to two kind of basically different lifestyles. But they didn't go to the extent to say that this was something unique that created a kind of very unique national culture, because in reality, the French, and Đào Duy Anh the French pointed out that even though you have rice cultivation in places like the north, center, and south, the lifestyles are different in those places, and that's because people have adapted to this way of life in different ways. They use different technologies, and therefore the natural environment only influences things to a limited degree. This is an idea that Đào Duy Anh introduced in Vietnamese to writers in his book, and as I said, it's one that has continued to exist in scholarship to the present, although probably not with the kind of sophistication that it took when it was first introduced by Đào Duy Anh. So that's another fascinating aspect about this book, an outline of Vietnamese culture. Very, very interesting stuff.